Hey students, welcome back to BB Simplified by Dr. Vinky Sharma. Continuing with Fundamental of Management, the last minute revision marathon class, today we have reached on the last unit. In this class, we'll discuss the last but one of the most powerful function of management, that's controlling. It is said that if planning decides what to do, controlling makes sure that it actually done the right way. By the end of this session, you will understand its meaning, process, techniques, and how it connects back to planning. So let's begin by understanding the meaning and concept of controlling. It is said that the term controlling is measuring and correcting performance so that organizational goals are achieved as planned. So what we are doing in the function of controlling, we are measuring and we are further controlling the performance with the objectives that we had planned and the one that we have achieved. So two things are happening here. We have done the planning part, the objective was set. Now in this function of controlling, we are measuring our current performance with the one that we had planned for. And if there are any deviations, if we are not on a right track, then we need to take the corrective actions in the performance only for the sake of ensuring that the objectives are achieved. So it is like a mirror that shows management whether things are going as expected or not. What controlling is doing, it is comparing the actual performance with the standards and further taking the corrective actions. Suppose your target is to sell 1000 units this month. By mid of the month, you realized and you see that you are only able to sell 400 units. Now what is to be done? So here comes the role of controlling. Controlling identifies that gap and prompts the corrective action. And those corrective actions could be, let's say, maybe more advertising or maybe sales offers or whatever suits best at that point of time. So this is what the meaning and concept of controlling are. Moving on to the features or nature of controlling. There are 5 key features that talks about or helps us to understand controlling better. The very first feature is continuous and pervasive. Just like all the other functions of management, controlling is also a continuous process. It is not done daily, it is not done once a month, it is not done once a year, it is actually done on the daily basis. Then we say that it is also pervasive. Pervasive means that it is applicable at all the levels. Controlling should be done on the lower level, on the middle level and on the top level. So we say that one of the nature of controlling is that it is a continuous and a pervasive process. The second feature is that it is future oriented. फ्यूचर ओरिएंटेड का मतलब यहाँ पे ये है कि मैंने एक प्लान बनाया, मैंने उसके ऊपर काम करना शुरू किया और मैंने देखा that there were certain problems, there were certain deviations and we have taken the corrective action. Now, what is the role of future oriented here is that next time whenever I am deciding on my objectives, I should make sure that the deviations which occurred in the previous plans should not come in my upcoming plan. जो प्रॉब्लम्स पहले हुई थी वो प्रॉब्लम फ्यूचर के प्लान्स में नहीं होनी चाहिए. So that way controlling is future oriented. Next we say that it involves measurement. Here we are actually talking about the numbers, the time that we are taking, the quality standards that we are achieving. So what we are doing is we are measuring in terms of numbers and quality and the performance. We had a plan, we had started working on the plan of action and now we are seeing that whether we are meeting up with those actions, we are meeting up with those plans or not. If there are major deviations, that means there was a problem while deciding on the objectives. So that is why it is said that it involves measurement. Next we say that it is closely linked with planning. Yes, because whatever we are comparing with, we are actually comparing it with the planning. Whatever plans we had made in the very first stage, we are comparing those plans into this last stage. In the coming slides, we will also see that how planning and controlling are different and how they are related to each other. What is the relationship between the two? The last key feature of controlling is that it is action oriented. It is aimed at taking corrective steps and not on blaming that the plan was wrong, or the team was wrong, or the entire procedure was wrong. So action oriented means that we have to actually take an action as and when we see that there is a deviation. You all study in college. So what happens in your colleges also, that they continuously check the attendance of yours, results of yours, just to maintain the academic discipline. And that is what? That is nothing but controlling in action. Next is objectives or importance of controlling. Why are we actually focusing too much onto this action, onto this function? Because it has its own importance. The very first importance of controlling is that it helps us to achieve the organizational goals. We had the plans. Controlling sees that the plans are met in a right way. Next is that it ensures efficient resource use. Whatever resources we are using in order to achieve the objective, controlling tells us that we are using it in an effective manner. Why? Because if something is not happening in a correct way, if any of the resource that we are using more than we must use, we are taking a corrective action into this function. Third is maintain discipline and standards. We have to ensure that we maintain the discipline, we maintain the standards of production so that we are able to achieve our goals efficiently. It further improves the coordination among the employees, and it focuses and ensures teamwork, because with this coordination and teamwork only we will be able to meet our standards. Further, as I had already explained in the previous slide, that it facilitates future planning. It provides a base for the future planning by avoiding the mistakes that were done in the previous slides. किसी होटल में आप जाते हो, let's say, वहाँ पे जो हाउसकीपिंग मैनेजर हैं, they regularly keep on inspecting the rooms to ensure that the quality and the hygiene are maintained. If the housekeeping manager would not do that, then what will happen? That he will not be able to provide a right service to its customers. So these checks keep the service standards consistent, and this is the role or objective or importance of controlling is. Let's move on to the next slide, which talks about principles of controlling. The very first principle of controlling is that it focuses on the key areas. What are the key areas? Key areas are that it controls what matters most and not everything. हम हर एक एक्शन को कंट्रोल नहीं कर रहे हैं, हम हर एक टाइम पे कंट्रोलिंग नहीं कर रहे हैं. What we are controlling, we are only focusing and we are only controlling what matters the most in order to achieve the objective that we had decided. Next is that it control by exception. Now this exception is what? To understand it, let's take an example. There is a company that ignores, see that while achieving their objective, they investigate that there was a drop of 20% in the production. Now this drop in production by 20% is a major issue. It is an exceptional case. So this needs to be controlled. This exception needs to be controlled. Next is we need to tailor controls to plan. Whatever we have planned initially, we have to control that suits the objective. We have to customize the control part as well, right? We have to ensure that it must suit the objective. The next one is that prompt reporting. One of the most important, I would say, principle of controlling. Why? Because if this promptness is missing, then I believe that controlling plays no role. हमने देखा कि आज प्रॉब्लम आई है हमारे प्रोडक्शन में. और हम उसकी रिपोर्टिंग कर रहे हैं 4 दिन बाद, do you think that we will be able to control that drop? Of course not. So that prompt reporting ensures that controlling is done efficiently. So the information should reach quickly for timely correction. The next principle is flexibility in approach. Controlling in itself involves flexibility. We cannot be rigid while we are on the controlling function, because this system needs to adjust to the change. Whenever there are changes, we need to adjust, we need to take the corrective actions. And finally, participation and accountability comes as one of the principle of controlling, because we say that it involves all the employees so that we can achieve better results. So for these better results, participation of the employees and the employees feeling of accountable for whatever they are performing plays an important role when we talk about these principles of controlling. Moving next to process of controlling, again a very important question from the exam point of view. These are the different steps that are taken in the controlling process, and these steps are standardized, which means that it happens one after the other. The very first step is setting the standards, something that we have to do in line with the objectives of the objectives that we had set. मेरे पास एक ऑब्जेक्टिव है, मैंने उसके हिसाब से अपने स्टैंडर्ड्स को सेट कर लिया है, because these standards would actually tell me that whatever we are performing are in a correct way or not. Then next is, once these standards are set, we then start measuring the performance. The actual performance is measured. We collect the data, for example, sales report, audit results, feedbacks, and then on the basis of this data, we start performing. Next is, then we compare the results with the standards. यहाँ पे हमने data collect कर लिया था. इस data को अब हम compare करेंगे अपने जो हमने standards set किए थे उनके साथ. And then we identify whether targets are met or missed. In case the targets are met, that means we are on a right track. In case there are deviations, this is what we find out in the next step. In case there are deviations, what we need to do? We need to take the corrective actions. So under this finding deviation, what we are doing? We are analyzing that why the gap exists. It could be maybe lack of training, maybe delay in supplies, maybe low motivation among employees. It could be anything. Right? So we need to find out the deviation, and finally with those deviation we need to take the corrective actions. The corrective actions is nothing but applying the solution to the problems. If suppose there was lack of training, so the solution is provide training to the employees. If there was a delay in supply, then make sure that the supply comes on a timely basis. If there were problems related to the policies because of which the low motivation was happening, so we need to design new policies, or maybe we need to revise the plans. Let's say that maybe the monthly sales fall short. So what the manager would do? The manager would review the advertising strategy, or maybe offers, or maybe he may come up with some extra incentives. I hope the process of controlling is clear. Now coming on to the types and techniques of controlling. This slide would take a little time. When we talk about types or techniques, there are majorly two types or techniques of controlling. One is the traditional technique, and then other one is the modern technique. When we talk about these traditional techniques include budgetary control, statistical reports, break-even analysis, and internal audit. These are the classical and time-tested method that managers have been using from decades. नाम से traditional है, but these are actually time-tested. Let's first talk about the first technique, which is budgetary control. As the name suggests, budget की बात हो रही है तो कहीं ना कहीं हमारे यहाँ पे figures की बात हो रही है. हमारा एक budget है जो हमने already बना लिया है. So this budgetary control means comparing the actual performance with the budgeted figures. And why we are doing it? We are doing it to ensure that we are spending and the operations that we are doing, they stay on the track, because every department gets its budget, right? And the budget could include maybe the budget for salary, budget for raw materials, for advertising. So when these budgets are set, what does the management do? The management monitor whether they stay within limits or not. Suppose the marketing department has a budget of 2 lakh rupees for social media campaign, but the department spends 2.5 lakh. Then what will happen? So this variation of 50,000 rupees tells the manager to investigate that why the cost increased or where efficiency slipped. So in short, we should understand that budgetary control prevents wastage and helps in cost planning. Then the next one is the statistical report. Statistical reports include charts, tables, graphs, and ratio analysis that present performance in numerical form. These reports make the trends and deviations visible at a glance. मेरे पास एक चार्ट बन के आ गया है, मुझे दिख रहा है कि मेरा वेरिएशन कितना ऊपर जा रहा है, कितना नीचे जा रहा है, मेरा एनालिसिस क्या कह रहा है. So just at a glance, I'm able to see that whether the deviations are happening or not, whether these deviations are on a higher side or on a lower side, whether I need to consider it as an exceptional case and need to take in corrective action, or whether it is a normal deviation. So this can be checked right at a glance. जैसे हमारा sales chart होता है, that may show a decline in region A, let's say. So for if this decline is happening for consecutive 3 or 4 months, so immediately there is an alert, and the regional manager would see that why there is a decline in that particular region. So these statistical control helps in quick decision making, and this decision is based on the facts, not the guesses. The third technique is break-even analysis. I hope that you all are aware of this term break-even. Break-even is a point wherein our revenue meets our cost. That is the point where we call it as a break-even point. So this analysis, how does it help us? It helps us in determining the sales volume at which total cost equals to the total revenue. It further tells the management that how much must be sold to avoid losses and start earning the profit, because as we go above the break-even point, this is where we start earning the profit, right? To understand it better, let's say that if your fixed cost is rupees 1 lakh and profit per unit is 100, so how much units should we actually sell to meet the break-even point? Should be 1000 units. So producing or selling below that means there is a loss, and producing and selling above that means there is a profit. Managers use this analysis to decide the pricing, production, and expansion plans. Then comes the internal audit technique. An internal audit is a periodic review of operations, procedures, and financial records within the organization. हम इन सब का एक periodical review करते रहते हैं. Why? To ensure the compliance with the policies and also to detect the errors or frauds at a early stage. अगर ये सारे periodic reviews नहीं होंगे तो errors होते चले जाएंगे और बहुत बाद में जाके हमें पता लगेगा, oh, we had the problem or probably there was a fraud that was happening in the organization. I hope these traditional techniques are clear to you. Now let's move on to the modern techniques. The very first technique that comes under modern technique is MBO, or management by objective. First, let me tell you that these modern techniques have actually come into the picture because the organizations were become larger and the technology was getting advanced. There were new technologies that were coming up. There were more sophisticated techniques which were available, that were evolving. So this required to introduce the modern techniques of controlling. Under that, when we talk about this management by objective, this was introduced by Peter Drucker. Now, what is the meaning of MBO? This means setting the specific measurable goals jointly by managers and employees and then periodically reviewing the process. जो भी objectives set होते हैं, इनको both the parties, management and employees, they both sit together and then they decide onto the objective. And then periodically they keep on reviewing the progress. For example, there is a sales executive and their manager, both of them agree on a target of 200 new customers in a quarter. And then both of them keep on tracking the performance monthly and discuss the challenges, whether they were able to meet their target of having 200 customers or not. How this technique helps? This technique actually increases the participation and self-control because everyone knows exactly what to achieve. And the employee do not believe that he was burdened with the objective or he was burdened with the target. The next technique is Management Information System or MIS. MIS is a computer-based information system that provides timely and accurate data to the manager. We are creating a database so that whenever we want to check the information, we can check it from that database. There is a dashboard that may show daily sales, daily inventory levels, maybe customer feedbacks that allow quick corrective actions. So these data are maintained and they can be used and checked when and where required. MIS supports control by giving the real-time insights instead of waiting for monthly reports. Right? The next one is the responsibility accounting. This means assigning control responsibility to individual managers or departments. Each responsibility center, like cost center, revenue center or profit center, is evaluated on its result. एक responsibility center बना दिया जाता है और उस center को हम timely basis पे evaluate करते रहते हैं on the basis of its results, whatever they have achieved. जैसे प्रोडक्शन मैनेजर है वो कंट्रोल क्या करेगा, वो कॉस्ट को कंट्रोल करेगा. जो सेल्स मैनेजर है वो अकाउंटेबल किसके लिए होगा, वो रेवेन्यू के लिए होगा. सो वी सी दैट हु इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर व्हाट पार्ट ऑफ द ऑब्जेक्टिव एंड व्हाट हैपेंस देन. दिस एंश्योर्स क्लैरिटी. एवरीवन नोज देयर एरिया ऑफ कंट्रोल, देयर एरिया ऑफ अकाउंटेबिलिटी and they perform accordingly to meet their performance expectations. The next technique is benchmarking. Benchmarking means when you compare your performance with the best in the industry. Right? If suppose you are in a business of making soft drinks, so with which company would you make your benchmark with? Of course, maybe with Coke or maybe with Pepsi. Right? So when we set a benchmark, now it also depends that at what level my organization is working at, and accordingly we set the benchmarks, but we generally set the benchmark with our competitors. So this means comparing your performance with the best in the industry to identify gaps and then you need to improve. So it turns competition into a tool for self-improvement. Then the next one is the balanced scorecard. This technique is actually working on the basis of a matrix. This was given by Kaplan and Norton. This balanced scorecard evaluates performance from 4 perspectives. First perspective is the financial perspective. Second perspective is customer perspective. The third one is internal perspective. And the last one is learning and growth. On the basis of these 4 perspectives, we create a matrix and we see that where does the performance lie? Right? For example, there is a business not only tracking, but also not only tracking the profit, but also tracking the customer satisfaction along with the employee skill development. Right? So it is a holistic approach that ensures the control covers both short-term results as well as long-term sustainability. I hope these two types of techniques are clear. You can mention in the comment if you want any further explanation of these techniques. Now let's come on to the relationship between planning and controlling. We have understood planning in the previous session. We have understood what controlling is into this session. Now in one of the slide I mentioned that controlling has a strong relationship with planning. Right? So let's see that how they are related. We'll see the first aspect, that is function. What is the function of planning? The function of planning is to set the goals. Right? And what does controlling do? It ensures that these goals are met. Moving on to time. Before we actually start acting, we make our plans. So this function is happening before the actions. In case of controlling, it is happening after the goals are met and also during the action. It is happening at both the times. Let's look at the dependence part. Planning provides us the standards, what we are about to achieve, and controlling helps us in measuring against those standards, and it helps us to know that whether we are able to achieve those standards or not. When a company plans to increase market share by 10%, controlling checks quarterly result to see if that goal is on track or not. Right? So without planning, controlling has nothing to measure. Planning नहीं होगी तो controlling क्या करेगा? कुछ भी नहीं करेगा. And without control, plans have no meaning, because we will never get to know that what we did, whether it was right or wrong. This is also one of the questions that generally comes in the examination. So you should just quickly revise and make a chart while answering into the exams. Coming on to limitations of controlling. Limitations तो सभी की होती हैं. We understand that we are talking about controlling, so it is time consuming, it is costly. है ना? Next is that it creates resistance from the employees. Employees may resist control if they see that it is an excessive checking. उनको लगता है कि बहुत ज़्यादा checking हो रही है हमारे ऊपर. So they may feel that controlling is a negative thing that is happening in the organization. Next is difficulty in setting the accurate standard, because external factors like government policies or market shifts, they can't be controlled internally. तो इसीलिए थोड़ा सा difficult हो सकता है in setting the accurate standards. Then next is external factors which are beyond the control. Also need to be checked here. Even with the excellent cost control, sudden raw material price hike can affect the performance. Then what will happen? So these are some of the factors that are beyond the control, and so it comes under the limitations of controlling. So let's summarize the key points. Whatever we have learned in this session, we understood that controlling is equal to measurement plus correction. Then we had learned that it involves measurement, comparison, corrections. It ensures efficient goal achievement. Techniques like budgeting, MIS, and benchmarking make controlling scientific. We have also learned that planning and controlling always work together, so they are linked closely. There are some questions that generally comes into your examination. For example, explain the process of controlling, describe techniques of managerial control, and discuss the relationship between planning and controlling. Remember, planning sets the path and controlling keeps you on the path. If this is remembered, then I believe that you are able to understood the controlling part very well. Thank you for learning with BBA Simplified by Dr. Vinky Sharma. Let's learn smart, revise fast, and score better. In the next video, I will be starting up with the marathon class on organizational behavior. Do like, share, and subscribe for more marathon classes. Thank you and goodbye.